Good morning. I want to do a chat today about Isaiah chapter 55, verses 8 and 9. Isaiah 55, 8 and 9. Just a simple chat, and here we go. Anybody know what this is? Do you recognize this? You probably don't, but this is called a bomb site. It was made by a person named Carl Norden. Carl Norden. If you've never heard of Carl Norden, he's the creator of the bomb site. This bomb site, what it did was it helped airplane bombers drop their bombs in a more precise location. There was, with an airplane flying at a high altitude at a very fast pace, and it's hard to drop a bomb and hit the target. Well, Carl Norden thought that maybe his bomb site created this very, very complicated, very, very intricate tool that would allow people to drop this bomb at a more accurate. I think they talked about it being able to drop a bomb from a certain height into a pickle barrel. Well, this bomb site was supposed to make the bombs much more accurate. Now, when you make a bomb much more accurate, the dropping of a bomb from an airplane much more accurate, the idea is that you can hit your target and only your target. Some would have you believe that we can't know what's good and what isn't. You know the passage they use for that? It's the passage in Isaiah chapter 55, verses 8 and 9. I'll have a conversation with people, and I'll be asking them questions about, could you imagine God, a good God, a loving God, a gracious God, a kind God, doing this or this or this or this? And they immediately, because they're arguing that God would want them to do things like, maybe Israel killing Palestinians, or maybe back in history Israel killing the Canaanites, or wiping out all the men and the women and the children, or maybe in that passage where they believe that God would tell them to divorce their wives and abandon their children. I mean, so they're talking about all these things, or we're talking about something like that, and I say something like, can you believe that a good, kind, gracious, loving God would do this? And they would say, well, wait a minute, Josh, I have the wisdom to know that my ways are not as high as God's ways. My thoughts are not as high as God's thoughts. And they're quoting Isaiah 55, 8 and 9. And they're saying that because God's ways are different, it makes sense for him to do crazy things like bomb people or kill people or wipe out the Canaanites. And so it's that screwed up thinking that causes people like Carl Norden to think that he could build this bomb site, this thing that helps you zero in and accurately drop the bomb. It didn't work, by the way. I mean, it could be very, very accurate in clear skies and in perfect situations, but it really didn't work in wartime. It turned out that it did work really well when they dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. As World War II loomed on the horizon, airmen already thinking of the possibility of creating a separate air force. Airmen were already thinking of the possibility of creating a separate air force. It was a difficult idea to justify the military and civilian leadership. Strategic bombing from planes was not seen as humane in the fact that it resulted in civilian deaths and injury and other collateral damage. Air Force leaders needed some way to convince military leadership, and especially President Franklin Roosevelt, that strategic bombing could be made humane, in that only military targets would be hit, with no or minimal civilian deaths or damage. Enter Carl Lucas von Norden, a Dutch engineer. Carl Norden was a Christian man. Read that. I want you to see that. A Christian man who worked to create a bomb site for humanitarian reasons. You can't build a bomb site. Let me say this as clearly as I can. You can't build a bomb site for humanitarian reasons. He knew that war and bombings were a reality and wanted to create a bomb site that would make the bombing of enemy targets as humane as possible. I want you to understand, this is not Christian thought. When you use passages like Isaiah 55, 8 and 9 to try to justify bomb sites and bombing, you've misused the text. You've misused the text. Drones for Christ. Here's another thought that is a misusage. Now, I'm a graduate of Liberty University, and so it's really hard for me to figure out a way. I mean, I can't. I just refuse. I will not try to justify the insane crap that has been done by Junior lately. But here's an article. Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia was founded by televangelist Jerry Falwell. Its publications carry the slogan, Training Champions for Christ, since 1971. If you're training champions for Christ, you will not be training pilots to use drones to bomb and kill people. But that's what Liberty does. Liberty bills itself as one of America's top military-friendly schools. This is a mistake. This is the opposite of the Prince of Peace. And you say, no, Josh, you got to understand that sometimes we have to kill people because God's ways are higher than our ways and his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. You've not read the passage. You're missing the point. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts are higher than your thoughts. But if you want to read that passage correctly, if you want to understand that passage in context, you've got to understand this is about God's desire to abundantly pardon. It's not about God's desire to, or God's allowance to kill some people. That is not the text. It's about abundantly pardoning. It says, seek the Lord while he may be found, call upon him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his way and the unrighteous man his thoughts, and let him return to the Lord, for he will have compassion on him, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon. If you're ever thinking, my thoughts aren't high like God's thoughts, my ways aren't high like God's ways, then what you need to do is you need to go back into your brain and you think, okay, God would be more abundant in his pardoning, not in his killing. If you use Isaiah 55, 8 and 9 to justify violence, you're misusing it. This passage is talking about God's desire to abundantly pardon. It goes on to say, for the rain and the snow come down from heaven and do not return there without watering the earth and making it bear and sprout. So God, he's an abundant pardoner. He gives water because he gives abundance to the earth and furnishing seed to the sower and bread to the eater. He gives abundance. God's a pardoning abundance God. And so will my word be which goes forth from my mouth. It will not return to me empty, without accomplishing what I desire, and without succeeding in the matter for which I sent it. For you will go out with joy and be led forth with peace, joy, peace. So if you want to think about how God's ways are higher than your ways and his thoughts are higher than your thoughts, think he pardons more than I would. God is more pardoning than I would be. He's more abundance. He has more of an abundance attitude. You say, well, Josh, I would help these people, but we don't have enough. God is about pardon, and he's about abundance. And God is about joy, and God is about peace. If you want to read Isaiah 55, 8 and 9, if you want to quote Isaiah 55, 8 and 9 to say that God's ways are higher and his thoughts are higher, you better be talking about how he pardons more, how he gives more. He gives more because of abundance. He has more joy, and he has more peace. God gives more peace, joy, abundance, pardon. You cannot. Let me say it one more time. You cannot use Isaiah 55, 8 and 9 to justify violence of any kind. You cannot use Isaiah 55, 8 and 9 to say, well, we got to build some drones because God's ways are higher than our ways. No.